Hi, this is Russ Tanner from Global Skywatch. It is March 10th, 2013. This is a Sunday evening, and we are having a special conference tonight. We normally have our live conferences on Monday night, but we're very fortunate to have a friend from the other side of the world joining us tonight. We're going to have just an informal conversation. We're going to have question and answer session afterward if anyone wants to ask questions. And we started out with a few technical difficulties right at the beginning, so forgive me if anything else happens, but unfortunately it's outside my control. I would like to announce that our guest we're having is Paul Mack. He is a chemtrail activist who has some experience in this field, and we're just going to have a chat and share some information and possibly learn from each other. So, Paul, thanks for coming on the conference tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us, Russ. It's good to be here, and hi to everyone's listening today. Just calling from Melbourne, Australia, so quite a bit down under, but we're certainly aware and awake to what's going on with chemtrails and geoengineering down here, and we're pretty much as unhappy as the rest of the world to see these things being poured out over the top of us every day, and without our permission, without our consent. At the end of the day, we're just a bunch of concerned citizens who've looked up and seen something that's not right, and in doing so, we're demanding some answers from our government, which are not forthcoming at this point. But our goal down here is to raise awareness on a global scale, just to let the rest of the world know that this is a global event and it is affecting everyone. But more than that, we want to just wake everybody up and get more people awake. The more people we've got awake, the better chance of getting this thing addressed, or at least some government disclosure we will have. So we've organised, we had our first protest earlier on the year, January 20th, where we had about 18 different locations throughout Australia and New Zealand with people attending. So that was somewhere in the order of around about 180 to 200 people, say, nationally between the two countries. And we also had a bunch of people supporting us from London, the London Geoengineering Truther Support Group over there. And they got a whole bunch of people out on a cold, snowy day as well. So this time around, April the 20th, coming up in 6 weeks' time, we are basically redoing the same set of protests under the same conditions. We've raised more awareness for the issue and for the protests now, and we expect bigger numbers to be joining us. This is now a quarterly event for us, so every 3 months we plan on a large protest somewhere in Australia and New Zealand, and motivating people to just continue to join us, to not be fearful of any attack or condemnation anywhere, but to get out there and support this issue and raise awareness, wake people up.
Go ahead. Were you going to say something else?
No. That's us in a nutshell. But I'm happy to field any questions and help people out do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. And for those listening, if you have questions on the chat room or in the phone conference, go ahead and type your questions. Or in the phone conference, I'll have a question and answer session after we're finished, so you can ask your questions, and it will be recorded and we'll play it back live. So anything that I don't cover with Paul, please raise the question so that we can get the information we need. Well, the thing that I'm interested in is I know, Paul, I hate chemtrails. I smell them, I taste them. I have a very bad inflammatory reaction to them. My nose burns. I can't sleep at night. I have probably about 20 different symptoms. I had a heart attack in 2011 because the barium lowered my potassium so low that if your potassium gets too low, it induces heart attack. My life has been profoundly changed by this. I am very passionate about doing something about this, which is why I'm doing these things that I'm doing. I would love to know, first of all, what is I want to get some information from you because I'm not experienced, and most of us who listen probably haven't actually participated in protests. Maybe some of us have. What's it like? What is a protest day like? What happens?
It's it's a great day. It's high energy. Certainly, the last one we had in Melbourne, we had roughly about 60 people turn out, which is modest, I guess, for our first sort of major protest event. But it was a good turn. It was a good cross section. There were mothers with babies and parents with children, and just ordinary citizens, people like you and I who are concerned about what's going on. So the protest day itself is exciting because you're doing something to raise awareness. You finally made that step from sitting behind your keyboard and looking at it all and going, gee, this is horrible, but what can I do, to actually doing something. And the excitement that comes along with that is just very energising. It's quite empowering, actually. Our last recent protest went for 3 hours. We organised in advance our permissions, so we don't want to do anything that's outside of the box right now in terms of being illegal or disruptive in terms of being in a public place. So we made the efforts in our preparations to go and talk to the local police planning departments for protests, and through them we mapped out the route. We told them what kind of numbers we were going to have, basically what our format would be, and we've provided with police escort for 2/3 of that event. Once we're set up down the far end of our march, they pretty much left us alone. But it was good in terms of we knew that we weren't going to get kicked off the street or anything was going to go awry with what we had planned for the day. And in fact, that we were fully supported and monitored by the police in that regard. So anyone coming in from a negative point of view would also have to deal with that relationship that we set up front. So I think if you get those things in place and get them in place early, then you've got much more free running with what you can do in terms of not being worried about things in the background.
Mm-hmm. So what is a day like? Like when you, if somebody who's listening in to this recording or to this live conference actually goes to their first protest, what is it going to be? What do they expect to see and do?
They can expect to basically, it's pretty standard format in any kind of protest events. There's a lot of protesting websites you can go to that give you an idea of how a protest should be run and what kind of format. Essentially, I just grab a megaphone and we have a rally point where we meet. We hand out as much information and banners, placards, hand out information to the various people that have turned up. So everyone is looking equipped with face masks that have no chemtrails on them, or an A3 size banner and A4 leaflets to hand out. We have an address. We took our address to State Parliament of Victoria. We had permission to stand only on the first 6 steps of the Parliament. We weren't allowed up any further. But that was enough. So, we had a 20-minute address there, which was filmed at the time, and I'll put up a link to the Melbourne protest on your site just shortly. And then from that address, we had a nice long march down the main street of Melbourne, and scared a few people off the footpath. And then we got down to our main rally point, which was a central mall right in the heart of Melbourne, and we set ourselves up down there in a location to raise awareness, which we did for 2 hours. We spoke to people on the street just passing us by, and surprisingly, it's a 50-50 scenario. A lot of people just put their heads down, keep walking. They don't want to know. But a lot of people do come up and say, hey, listen, I've heard about this chemtrail thing. What's going on? Inform me. And that's really the heart of what we do. And the exciting, energetic part for everyone to be involved with, is you finally get a platform to tell somebody who doesn't know about what's going on, who hasn't looked up and fully comprehended what's happening in the skies above them and around the world, and to see the lights go on in people's eyes and you know, in their thinking, and taking that information and going, you know, genuinely saying, thank you for sharing this with me. I'll go home and research this. How can I contact you? We had a wealth of people who have you know, not connected on Facebook, but they've seen stuff online on the internet, and you know, we've now got a string of emails coming in for people who want to get involved and come back to the next protest. So that's what you can expect. It's a fun day. You know, there's nothing scary or frightening about it. I think, you know, you can expect to be relieved in that regard, but also empowered. That feeling of empowerment, just in getting this message out to people and waking people up, and building something, you know, moving forward that will hopefully have some momentum in terms of, you know, being an agent in the process of change.
So what kind of response do you get from the people you run into during one of these events?
It's a varied response. We've had maybe a couple of hecklers out of literally hundreds of people. I think they know that, you know, they're pretty much outnumbered on the day, so they just wander off. But you get, you know, it's a 50-50 response, Russ. A lot of people, you know, they see you on the pavement and you've got something in your hand, you're trying to get their attention. People just want to tune out, they'll cross the road to get away from you, sort of thing. But it's the people who do stop to talk, that's the good response. And, you know, out of 100 people, we might get to talk to 20 people. That passes out of that every 100, and, you know, that's a good conversation, because that's 20 more people who are aware and awake, and will, you know, hopefully take this message and start talking to their friends and family about it. We certainly encourage them to do that. We encourage people to do their research online and do their homework, and you know, really ground themselves with the information, so that they're not sounding you know, flaky or misinformed. That pretty much nutshells it, though. I mean, it's a good feeling, you know, to get out there and do something and not just be stuck behind a keyboard complaining about it.
Yeah, I've got to say, that was my next thing is, how does it feel? You mentioned earlier that it's energizing, it's exciting, because you're actually getting out and doing something. And I've actually had people talk to me or chat with me online who have done something. Some people have gone out and done something, not even protest, but gone out and put signs up and do something, and they say it's absolutely exhilarating, because they feel so empowered, because they're actually out doing something now besides sitting behind a keyboard, just like you said. So what's the feeling you get after you do this, or while you do this?
It's a good feeling. I can't describe it any better than that, Russ. It's an exciting feeling. It's an empowering feeling. It's motivating, because you know that you're making a difference finally, and, you know, it's not just about sitting behind a keyboard anymore. It's where the rubber meets the road in terms of everything that's got to happen to get this information out to people. You know, it's energizing. It's a beautiful thing, really, at the end of the day. And I wish more and more people would have that feeling. And it's not just what we do in terms of the larger protests as well. We try to get out, you know, on a monthly basis. A lot of our guys are now investing, you know, small amounts of money in more professional posters and stickers and things like that. We'll attend, you know, events that are happening in the city, maybe that where they're talking about geoengineering or you know, planet shaping, that sort of thing. These events are happening more and more, so we like to just rock up to those in the background, have a listen. If there's a Q&A, we'll have a chat, or we'll just talk to people and hand information out as they leave, something like that as well. So once you've got your toes wet and you realise, you know, there's not a whole bunch of people in black vans out there with cameras watching you or going to arrest you or that sort of thing, you understand that, you know, you have a right to do this, and it's important that you exercise that right to protest what you believe in and voice it. So getting your toes wet is the first step, and once they're wet, it's just relax and enjoy the journey, really.
It must be really nice meeting other like-minded people, isn't it?
It is, yeah, especially people on the street who are not, Facebook connected like a lot of us are. It's great because there is more behind the scenes. There are more people out there watching this issue and concerned about this issue. Sorry.
I bet it's
going on in the background.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And they want to be part of it as well. So it's connecting the dots. From little things, big things grow. So it's a small beginning, but every time we reach an extra person and we empower another person, then a multiplication factor creeps into what we're doing, and that's what we want, really. We want to generate momentum with this now.
Now, I bet it's the kind of thing where once you do it, you start looking forward to the next event. Is it like that?
Yeah, it is. It's a scary good feeling at first, but once you got the first one or a couple under your belt there, it's like, okay, well, what can we do to make this better? How can we improve this? People come out of the woodwork in terms of offers of filming what you're doing, recording it. So you start thinking about how you can do that a bit more professionally to, present a more professional image to what we're doing. And that's motivating as well, because it's encouraging when these people do come out of the woodwork and approach you and say, oh look, I've got a time lapse set up on some camera gear. Where do you think we can use this? Or I actually run a community television channel show on a TV station we've got down here called Channel 31. These guys approached us after the protest and said, look, we want to take this, what you've done today, and they filmed it for us. But they want to put it together in terms of a documentary. So in a few months' time, we'll be hopefully engaged in that process and producing, a media piece that we can use, again, to promote what we're doing and create momentum. So it's wonderful, the people you meet, and they're quality people. They're just normal people like you and I. They're not scary in any way. They're just wanting to get this message out and share it like everybody else.
Well, that's awesome. It's like I've told people for a long time, is that when you get people together, great things happen. And you start getting people who have skills, like you said, time lapse, or they might have videography skills or whatever, and they start saying, well, what can I do to help? And before long, you've got an organization. I mean, that's what I've seen happen before with other things. Is do you see that kind of thing happening here, coming together?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's there in the background, and it's being worked on just behind the scenes. Don't want to give too much away in terms of other people who may be listening, but it is happening, and it's really you wonder at the front end, am I going to be the only one that gets out there? Am I going to look foolish standing on the street? But then when you have this momentum as a groundswell coming behind you, you realise and understand very quickly that this is going to be big. It's going to be a huge process, and this is just the very front end of it in terms of what we're doing down under. But it's mighty in its makings in the background, and that's exciting, because you go from a place of not knowing and being lacking maybe a bit of confidence and moving forward to suddenly being energised and being empowered to move forward and encouraged by all the different people with skill sets that just want to be involved and use their skill to create something to motivate people. And people are motivated and skill equipped in so many different ways, Russ, and it's just great to see that community forming and to have the energy of the people in there who are being empowered at the same time motivate you to maybe take a few extra steps and move forward a little bit more confidently.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've just seen many times in the past when people get together and all of a sudden you've got alliances made, you've got people working together. They're getting 4 or 5 times more done than they were before because somebody's burning DVDs, somebody's handing out flyers, somebody's doing the printing. Everybody's doing a little bit, and you're getting a lot more done. So it's really cool to see that. I wanted to ask you, let's get down to the details a little bit. I think a lot of people who hear this program online are going to want to know how do you organize something like this, and what do you have to watch out for? What are the things to beware of, and any tips? What can you tell us about organizing one of these things?
Well, for us down under, it all started 9 months ago, Russ. I've been looking at the chemtrail geoengineering issue and studying it in the background probably for 2 years now. But 9 months ago, I got to a point where I thought, look, we really need to be doing something a bit more than just, looking at this and talking about it, and could see around the country that there was lack of organisation. I kind of put my hand up with another guy to become a facilitator and organiser in terms of just getting a national radar and position agenda on what is going on, happening. So 2 of us started the Against Chemtrail groups in Australia, which we have some 22, 23 of those groups now. They're dotted around the national centres and the regional centres, and we could see other chemtrail groups operating in Australia, so we started talking to them. We pulled in some of their admin to join in with us with what we were doing. But basically we organised ourselves into a national network, and that gave us the framework to start building on. We concentrate on putting people in contact with each other in terms of local communities. It's very important with what we do. It's a grassroots movement, and it has to come from you and I, people on the street, mums and dads, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. Everyone at that community level, that family level, has to engage this and get involved in some way. So we started plugging them into these groups and allowing these little satellite communities to what we were doing to grow. And then in an overview sense, from an admin perspective, we introduced the idea of, okay, well, now you've got this little community here. We're having a national protest on this day. What's your little community going to do? And some of these are very, very small towns. It's only half a dozen people. But they're getting out into, the town centre or the town green, if you like, and handing out flyers, talking to people. It's all very low key, but it's empowering. And since we had that event in January the 20th, with the infrastructure that we've set up, we've been able to expand on that. Now people have seen what we attempted, seen the validity of it and the success of it, and are now more motivated to, take some ownership for their local communities and run with it. So it's not something that one person can organise. It has to be many people organising it with obviously a sort of central point of connection.
Okay, when you what are some of the logistics and some of the tips you might give us? Because honestly, like from my point of view, I'd love to set something like this up. Of course, my health is so affected by this; it's hard. But where do you start? What do you do? I mean, what's the first steps? Like maybe from a legal point of view, anything to watch out for, anything like that?
Yeah, from a legal point of view, you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to be a legal event. You don't want to leave a loose end there that can come back and bite you. And some people travel to these protests from very, very long distances, and we had a couple of failures where we couldn't make connections and things like that. But from a legal standpoint, we did make sure that we got everyone to cover their bases. In your local, town sheriff or whatever it is, your constabulary over there, they will have guidelines for protesting in public places. It's important that we follow those guidelines, we adhere to them. It's important that we have good communication with those people, that they understand what our protest is, how many people are going to be involved in it, that it is a peacefully natured protest, that we're not promoting or advocating any form of violence whatsoever. And these, in your police officers there, you will have a person who is allocated to dealing with public protest, and it's vital that you connect with that person and inform them. I mean, you don't have to give them everything lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, but you need to give them, the time, the location, planned routes, planned activities, and and length of protest. And then it's important that you stick with that framework. You don't step outside that box. Number one, that will give you a good relationship to go back to that contact with. They know that you did what you said you were going to do last time. You didn't deviate from that, and that you carried that out with no problems. That's all they're looking for, is that they don't want problems at the end of the day. There may be other factors that could impinge on what you're doing. They will inform you of that. There's another protest that's happening around the corner, or that street is closed today because of, roadworks or whatever. So, they will make sure that, where you've said you're going to be and on the day is a safe place for you to be in, and it helps. It's a two-way street that you've got that information, so you don't trip up on the day and get there and find that road is closed for whatever reason, and you've got to reformat everything. It's pretty simple, really. Once you've got that in place and those connections in place, it's very easy to go back to them the second time and say, hey, it's me again. We're having another protest where, we're using a similar route. We're going to have, X, Y, Z in terms of numbers. You just click the button, tick the box, and then that's sorted for you. You don't need to think about it again. You can focus on the more key things in terms of what you're doing in your protest, what your address may be, and how you can better utilise the people. We learned a lot last time about, how our protest ran, how it could be more effective, how we could make that into a better, more powerful tool. So when you've got all the boxes ticked up front in terms of authority and what you need to manage there, everything else just flows.
Okay, so anyone who's listening on the live stream, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat room that's right below the stream. You can find our live stream on globalskywatch.com/live, Live. You can join our Monday night conferences at the same address, globalskywatch.com/live. I'm going to enable question and answer mode on the phone conference system. So bear with me just a sec. For anyone who'd like to ask a question on the phone conference system, please dial *6 on your phone, and you'll be entered into the queue. And when your phone is unmuted, you can go ahead with your question. So, Paul, is there something else you wanted to say? You sound like you're still there, Paul?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Let me ask you about, so basically you want to, just a couple logistical things, like you want to go to the local police and say, this is what we want to do, give us the forms we need to fill out, probably to the county building or whatever, what do we have to do, what do we have to know? Is there any, anything, any other, any snags you've run into that you would give people advice so that they could watch out for that when they're organizing their events?
In terms of local officialdom, you may need to get a permit, and that would certainly be covered under any authorities from the police that you'd be looking for. So those are the key things. Other pitfalls would be just good communication on the day, having a dedicated mobile phone number. I mean, you can just go and get these things pretty easily now as a protest phone number, but making sure that the people who are coming have a point of contact. Sometimes at a protest you can find yourself a little bit shifted or put off base in terms of you've got to go around the corner somewhere or something, and people rock up and they're like, well, nobody was there, or So you really just need that point of contact on the day so that you maximise everyone's energies and efforts, and nobody's left wondering or wandering around lost, because that can be pretty disheartening. But other than that, it's a pretty simple process. I mean, it's just going to a location, and it's just making some noise, putting some colour out there, talking to people in a genuine fashion, and just sharing from your heart what you believe. So it's not rocket science to put together. I don't have an activism background in terms of, maybe in my teen years I attended a few protests and things in New Zealand and in the cities, but I haven't done anything like this for years, and I found it a very simple process to engage and get set up. Once it was rolling, it's rolling. It's you just got to keep the plate spinning and build momentum. So there's nothing tricky about it up front. Anyone can do this. You've just got to be motivated and be compliant. We don't want violence or nasty things happening with what we're doing. We are very family oriented. We try to project that to show people that we're not threatening, and we're a non-threatening group, but we feel that we're threatened by the government. So we're just ordinary people raising awareness from that point of view.
A couple quick things. Is there a best time of day to do this?
Middle of the day seems to be a good time. It gives people coming in from far-flung areas a chance to journey in the morning. So we peg all our protest time between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's a 3-hour window. The time everyone sort of gathers at 11 a.m., it'll flow on from there. So, and then a few hours into that, a lot of people have spent that energy, and we've pretty much made the point we've come to make. So it also gives people time to travel home. So, 11 till 2, middle of the day, certainly seems to be the best timing that we've worked out.
Okay, what about day of the week?
Day of the week, obviously if you're going to political offices on a weekday is really good, because that's when all the politicians are in their offices. But I mean, they know what's going on. They're just ignoring us studiously. So on a weekday, you lose people who have jobs and got to go to work. So it's obviously going to be a much smaller turnout. So that leaves the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. We're trialling both. The January protest was a Sunday protest, which for Melbourne netted us sort of 60-odd plus people. And this time around it's going to be a Saturday. And it's horses for courses. There's various people who prefer the Sunday format because they've got sporting commitments and things like that happening on the Saturday. And there's people who prefer the Saturday because, they might have Sabbath commitments on a Sunday or other things that they would want to be doing. But at the end of the day, you're going to get more people at a weekend, and it doesn't really matter which day I think you pick, the Saturday or the Sunday. Those who want to be there will be there with all the bells and whistles on. Those that want to make an excuse will make an excuse either way. So you just press on regardless past those things and set up a date and a time. Saturday and Sunday seem to be the best, definitely. Public holidays as well, maybe. Okay,
what about walking aside busy roads with signs or something like that? Good idea, bad idea?
It's a good idea if you're organised. We were offered the opportunity to have a road closure at our last event. We felt we didn't have enough numbers to warrant that. So we used the footpaths that were available to us. Obviously, you've got some common courtesy in terms of how you engage other members of the public coming up. Try and make a little bit of room for them to get past. That was certainly asked of us by the Victorian Police Force as part of our march, that we do have that as a consideration. So, a tight-knit file as you march, but that doesn't mean that you certainly can't wave a banner or a placard and make some noise in terms of that process. When it gets to a bigger stage, I understand that we'll have the opportunity for road closure. I think that's when we'll get some more traction in terms of media interest. They tend not to like you closing roads in the city, but it is a legitimate public protest. It is planned, it's organised, and we have the right to do that to raise awareness on what we feel is a very important issue. So I think you'd be respectful and mindful of what's happening around you and how you engage, the public in general, and things will go fine. We've not had any problems to date, that's for sure.
All right, we've got some questions from both the chat room and people online. If you're on the phone conference and you want to ask a question, press *6 on your phone and you will be entered into the queue. If you're online on the chat room, just go ahead and type your chat question in, and we will. I'll ask that question of myself, of Paul. This is Russ from Global Skywatch. If you want to come to our Monday night conferences, please join us at globalskywatch.com/live. We are a great community of people who care about what's going on, and we would really love to have you join us. We've got Paul Mack from Australia on the phone with us, who participates in a quarterly protest, and we're learning how this works and how to do this ourselves. Here's some questions I've got, Paul. And I just, before I don't want to forget to thank you for what you do. You're on the front lines, and you're doing a great thing, and you're passionate, and you're out there, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work that you do.
Thanks, Russ. Much appreciated. I've also just put the link up in your room of the Melbourne protest that we filmed. It's about 29 minutes long. It's worth watching for anyone who's got questions in the background. Maybe just have a quick look at this, and you'll see how we organised ourselves on the day, what it was like, and the type of people that turned up. So feel free to have a look at that.
Great, Paul. Where did you put that, Paul?
On Global Skywatch Facebook page.
Oh, gotcha. All right, I'll go ahead and relay that to the... There we go. See it. I also want to tell people, if anyone wants to send me protest pictures, event pictures, pictures of end geoengineering signs in their front yards, send them to admin, A-D-M-I-N, at globalskywatch.com, and I will post them so we can show the world that we really are doing something and that this is a big, important issue. Let me give you a couple questions. Paul, one of them off the chat room says, have you had any type of dialogue with your elected officials, and if so, how has that gone?
Yeah, we've been very active in terms of getting email, information newsletters, flyers to our elected officials, but to date we've just been stonewalled in terms of the replies that are coming back. They're directing us to, obviously, evidence of contrails rather than chemtrails. The lines in the sky are just water vapour. It's nothing to worry about. That kind of stonewalling, I mean, that's to be expected. These guys are hiding a massive lie in plain sight. So we're not really expecting any great inroads in terms of elected officials, politicians at this point. But we are making sure that we maintain that contact, and we're sending them stuff daily, weekly, monthly. It's a constant flow into their email inboxes of members requesting information and insight into what's going on. So they know more and more people are waking up, and I think that's scaring the pants off them, to be honest. But yeah, pretty much they're just ignoring us at this point. Gotcha.
That's what I'm hearing from all over, and I do want to share my experience. I'm one of those very sensitive people who can smell and taste chemtrails, and not just a little bit. They're absolutely overwhelming to me. They burn my sinuses. They taste like metal or motor oil or acetone, depending on which type of chemtrail they are. So I want to encourage everybody listening, if you have people who say, no, that's just water vapor, it is a lie. I've stood out. It's been 7 years now. I stand outside, watch them spray, and when they're on really low altitudes, it doesn't take that long until suddenly the plume descends on us on the ground. You don't actually see the plume descend, although it does seem to lose altitude. But after about 30 to 60 minutes for those low-flying planes, suddenly there's the strong smell of acetone in the air, or metallic taste, depending on what type. So this whole idea that these are water vapor is disinformation, and it must be one of the most evil lies that I've ever been told, because you're basically telling people that something that is very poison is perfectly safe. And it's a horrible thing, and I always like to say that because it just really gets under my skin that they're trying to spread this lie. They're supposed to be working for your benefit, your safety, serving you, and not lying to you, telling you things telling you that poison is safe. So we have a question on the console, the call-in console, so let's take that question. Thanks for calling. Caller, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, this is Ann Fillmore, and I'm on the Oregon coast. That's the northwest United States. And we get chemtrailed heavily. But it's very, very difficult to get word out up and down the coast here. Mostly people are quite ill. At any rate, thank you, Paul, for being there. It is just amazing. I am so encouraged by everything that you've said, that you can actually get people out and doing that. My question is sort of off that track a little bit. I am very curious as to, in Australia, over Australia, who is actually doing the flying? Do you know if they're American planes or Australian planes? I'm just interested to find out if it goes beyond American military, if that makes sense.
It's a good question. Yeah, that's a great question, Anne, and you're absolutely right. It does go beyond the American military. We've been collecting data in the background for the last 9 months now. The thing is, once you've got a network of Skywatchers set up, you can do all sorts of things with them. So we've got people dotted all over the country right now, and we're using an online program called Flight Radar 24. It's a plane tracking program, and all of the commercial flights across the country, some military flights, but not many. In concert with that, we've got members on the ground who live under high traffic, flight routes, and they live in, basically the chemtrail alleys of our country. And they're daily taking photographs, and we're coupling those photographs, time and date stamped, to what we're seeing on the Flight Radar 24 program, and storing that information. There's a wealth of information that comes from that. But one thing we have learned, and very quickly, is that commercial passenger-carrying aircraft are performing chemtrailing operations. We know that to be a fact. We've got proof, documented proof to back that up. And we'll be using that proof down the track at the right time and place. But, yeah, you can rest assured, Anne, that there's definitely commercial airlines. So these are airlines that are flying in from all over the world, tracking to our major centres. These are regional flights that are tracking from a major centre to a regional area in Australia. And the same goes for over New Zealand as well. But they're definitely commercial passenger jets, and they're definitely performing chemtrail operations.
Oh, God, it's just so much money involved in this that could go to other good uses. It is just so disgusting.
Billions of dollars, and just
millions of dollars.
Yeah, billions. I think it's. I saw on one of the account and analyzation forms that showed the U.S. government had a new line item in 2005, which is when the year that the vast majority of people started seeing these. Now, of course, people have seen these for many years before, but 2005 seemed to be the year that everybody started talking about this in my circles around the world. And what I learned is in 2005, there's a new line item added to the U.S. budget that was $996 million for aircraft services. The next year, that rose above $1 billion. No explanation for what aircraft services are, but it was very interesting. All right, anything else, caller? Okay, thank you so much for your call. We had a couple questions from the chat room too. If anyone else from the caller. From the call conference system has a call, just hit *6 on your phone and you'll be added to the queue. A few more questions from the chat room. Paul, what type of support are you giving in medical community?
Very little. Very little support at all. We are networking with a few guys internationally now who do have university-based scientific protocol-oriented backgrounds, if you like. And that's something that's exciting because academics everywhere are finding that well, number one, if they wake up, that number two, they've got a choice whether they be part of the lie and perpetuate it inside their operations, or they go the other route and become an activist in terms of whistleblowing on what's going on. So there's some stuff in the background there that's starting to take shape in terms of some of these whistleblowers coming out and becoming activist motivated now. But in general terms, the scientific community just likes to studiously ignore us. We have dialogue with the Chief Scientist of Australia, who pretty much has a party line in regards to geoengineering chemtrails, which is the government line that these are just water vapour contrails. So a lot of our members like to email him on a daily, weekly basis and provide fresh anecdotal evidence to him. It's pretty blatantly obvious that something's going on, but these guys, they're studiously ignoring us and denying us at the minute. But as we get momentum, we expect to see more and more of them having a conscious crisis and really understanding exactly what they're doing and perpetrating as a crime against humanity. And that conscious crisis will see them swinging over to us. We're certainly encouraging them to come and talk to us. We're certainly trying to provide a safe, non-threatening environment for them to be able to come out and blow the whistle. We don't want anyone attacking pilots. We don't want anyone attacking scientists or naysayers. We want to present ourselves in a peaceful fashion and in a safe and welcoming environment where these people can feel comfortable that they won't be marginalised and won't be attacked and set upon by, so I guess there's some pretty upset people out there about what's going on. But, we would encourage them to blow the whistle and feel confident that they can do so in an environment that's safe for them to do so.
Yeah, and we've got to the people, the most attractive, or maybe I should say effective way to attract people, seems to me, is to present yourself in a very professional way, in a very respectable way, so that these people look at you and they respect you. To win their respect and to win their affection, looking at you saying, well, these are good people, is just going to make it all more likely that they're going to listen to what you're saying. Is that true, Paul?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You treat other people how you wish to be treated, and if you're disrespectful for their profession or their academic achievement, then they're not going to be interested in talking to you. So, as you'd like to be treated, so you treat others. And I'd certainly encourage anyone out there listening who has been thinking about approaching these guys negatively because of what they do, what they're involved and engaged with, to rethink that and approach them in a very respectful and open, friendly manner and in a non-threatening way. It's going to produce a better result for everybody, and it's going to show people that we are serious and that we're not just fringe tinfoil hat wearers. We're genuine people who are concerned. We're normal, functioning members of society. We're just concerned. We have families, we have friends. We want some answers to our questions. We don't believe we're getting them, and we're going to continue asking them in a respectful fashion until we get some answers.
Very good, very good. We've got a caller who has a question. Caller, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, good evening. This is Simon down in Central Florida, and we get bombarded with the aerial spraying on a daily basis. And I wanted to ask the presentator, I'm aware of night flying in our area, and I wondered if that happened in New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, it definitely does, Simon. We have night flying operations. They're much harder to detect. Some of us are getting funds together to equip ourselves with more infrared-orientated cameras, but you can go out on any night with the moon, especially over our food bowl border areas, our main traffic corridors, and by the moon's light you can see trails by the hundreds. They're out there. They're doing it at night. They're doing it during the day. We're seeing massive geoengineered clouds rolling in of a morning, and the only way that they could possibly have orchestrated that is by doing a lot of that work at night. with, chem bombs or chem rockets. We think some of these are being launched in very remote areas to geoengineer the skies and let them float in on the morning breeze. But it's a 24/7 operation. It's big money, and it's happening definitely day and night. So I can confirm that's happening down under as well.
Very good. Anything else, caller?
Yeah, one other question. Are you finding it's just on the, being that Australia is obviously basically populated on the outer extremes, are you finding that most of the spraying is on the outside, on the coastline of Australia?
That's a good question, and some of that data we've not been able to verify in terms of Central Australia, which is pretty much a barren desert for the most part. But the geoengineering aspect of what they're trying to achieve is completely over the country. Cloud mass and structures being created in remote areas and being allowed to drift across into populated areas. But certainly the main aircraft corridors, so if you took between Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne as that corridor, they are definitely high populous areas, and they're being sprayed in a different fashion in terms of maybe some of the makeup of the trails. That pretty much sums up. We believe it's across the country, but certainly high traffic areas, high populated areas are being hit pretty hard as well.
Very good. And I would add to that you were talking about, I've driven up and down the U.S. A few times and flown since chemtrails have begun, and I have noticed that because I can smell and taste chemtrails, and believe me, it is not pleasant, it's a horrible thing, it's painful, that each time the most populated areas were the places where the smell and taste of chemtrails were the most intense. Also, right before this, you were talking about night spraying. I want to tell you that I saw night spraying as early as 2005 the year that I first saw widespread spraying in Jamestown, New York, where I lived at the time. Not only did I see it, but I smelled it. And in fact, the nighttime spraying to this day continues to be harder than the daytime spraying. Almost always. It's almost always worse at night. We have a call from the chat. A question from the chat room. I have seen many photos of chemwebs from down under. Have those been tested, and what have the results been, if so?
Yes, we had an event probably a year ago where a lot of chemwebs were falling. We have, to my knowledge, we have a collection of them, but I don't know that anyone has performed any testing on them to date. Our testing at this point is limited to soil and water samples and hair and blood samples. There is somebody down here who is just working in the background to collate a lot of testing information. So if you have tests that you've been performed and you've got results for, and you're happy to share that data, then certainly send it on through to Russ to forward to ourselves. We've got somebody who's collected a lot of that data now, and it's just sort of being built up in the background, ready for the right time and place for that to be released as well. We do have chemwebs stored for testing. We're not seeing them as much as we saw them during that period. They were pretty much everywhere. A lot of people took samples, and whole fields and pastures were coated in these webs. And if you see them, don't touch them without rubber gloves on. We're recommending that people don't just pick these things up. You just treat it as something very toxic. But yeah, there'll be more on that topic as this information is collated and ready for use in an appropriate forum. So yeah, we'd certainly like to add any data you've got to our information.
Paul, are there any websites you'd like to plug that people should go to and visit for Australia, New Zealand, or any other places that you'd like them to go?
Sure. Well, our key website, protest website, is the Australian New Zealand Geoengineering Protest. You can find us there on Facebook. We've also got Australians Against Chemtrails and Chemtrails Over New Zealand as our two sort of main interlinking sites for the countries, and then there's a breakdown of sites locally within Australia that you can go to from there. We are putting together some websites in the background. One of them at the moment is awake.net.au. That's being built. It's not the be-all and end-all, certainly, with what we're doing down here, but there are a few others being worked on, built up in the background. Another good one in New Zealand, run by a lovely lady called Rose, is the Contrail, and she's done really some good work there on that site. So that's the contrail.co.nz, I think it is. If you just Google the Contrail, it will come up. And there's a bevy of other sites and information around the world that we certainly are tapping into. Geoengineeringwatch.org, Dane Wigington's site, has been an invaluable source of information and inspiration to many of us in the chemtrail geoengineering movement. And we certainly follow what Dane is doing very closely and the information that he's putting out there. So we take a lot of our lead in terms of what's going on globally from yourself, for us at Global Skywatch, and Dane, Michael Murphy, Scott Stevens. These guys are all very, very knowledgeable and educating us in a big way down under. It's just great to have them as a resource and a background with what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve, because it legitimises our efforts in a big way, and it's certainly a team effort in getting all of this, awareness out there raised.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone, this for you, Paul, and for anyone else listening at globalskywatch.com, we have a master list of all geoengineering/chemtrail websites, and we've got a whole big long list at globalskywatch.com/links, links.html. If anyone wants their site, Facebook group, blog, forum, whatever, added to that list, we will be more than happy to add it. And we're also going to soon be dividing it up by region around the world so people can quickly find a group that they want to find. So please feel free
Excellent.
please feel free to email me a link to your group and request that you be added to this list. My email is admin, ADMIN, at globalskywatch.com. We have another caller who has a question for you. Let me see if I can get this caller on here next. Okay, caller, go ahead, please.
Hi, Russ. Hello, Paul. This is Mark in southern Utah. Good evening.
Hey, Mark. How you going, mate?
Doing just fine, thanks. This is more of a observation I was going to share a little bit with you. I have quite a bit of free time, and I like to spend a lot of it outdoors, so watching chemjets has become kind of an avocation, a hobby. I hate to use that word, but I'm beginning to see characteristics that are so obvious to what's going on that it just blows my mind that people aren't kind of waking up to what's going on just by the behavior of the airplanes. For example, today it just hit me real strongly that on days when the jets are trying to obliterate the sky, they fly at almost supersonic speeds. They look like they're right at the speed of sound almost, and they do this just as fast as they can along the chemtrails that just hang in the sky. They crisscross, and then the sky's gone. In fact, I want to throw this one will really surprise the heck out of you. I know airplanes pretty good because I'm a former pilot, and I like military airplanes. I used to. We had one come at the house. They come out in a fan. They always come from the same direction. We had one of them came right at the house, and I noticed its chemtrail was shorter than the ones on either side of it. And I had my binoculars. I was outside cutting wood with my binoculars handy, and I couldn't believe what I saw. This pure white, small. It looked exactly like an F-104 starfighter from the 1950s era was spraying, and that's a 1,400 mile an hour airplane. Of course, it wasn't supersonic because they don't want to break any sound barriers, but they're beginning to employ a lot of different types of aircraft. And I noticed a lot of the aircraft, I'm guessing they're evergreen military contract planes. They all have pink bellies, kind of a sickly, anemic, blood-looking color paint scheme underneath them, and maybe the same color on the vertical stabilizer. But today it was real. What was interesting today is we've been in that mode where we're getting the short chemtrails, and what I wanted to mention mostly today was when they're trying to cover the sky, they're going almost supersonic, really close. But I've noticed all of these short chemtrail days, the planes are just putting along at 300 miles an hour. And I'm wondering, why are they flying so dang slow when they're doing these short chemtrails? Well, I'm guessing that by flying slower, number one, I think that they're trying to show the world that these are just contrails, and don't worry about it, folks. But this slower flying, I think, is allowing more material to be released at these lower settings of the chemtrail emissions from their tanks. You know what I'm saying? If they go by at 600 miles an hour, they're going to put out half as much as if they go by at 300 miles an hour. And so that's just an observation that I've got from today. But the other thing I saw today that was real telltale was that 3 of these pink-bellied jets all intersected at the same point. 2 of them had the miniature chemtrail. You know, it's a pretty good length. And the third one was heading back in the direction from where they all come, and it was empty, and it had nothing coming out of it. And they all crisscrossed right at the same time. 2 with chemtrails, and 1 empty. And the empty ones that I see around here, I just had one fly over my head on a big hike a couple of days ago, always head for the same exact direction, and it always appears to be coming from Nellis Air Force Base military operations area. So, you know, I could go on talking all night, which I'm not going to. I'm going to wrap this up. But, you know, you start seeing patterns to these planes. It's like they're playing games with us. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'll tell you what, it's interesting to watch these things because you can figure quite a bit out about their behavior. I'll turn it back over to you, Paul.
Yeah, no, you're right there, Mark. You guys are in the Northern Hemisphere are seeing much, much, much more activity than we are down here. Our activity levels would, you know, probably be, I don't know, not even a fifth of what you guys are getting up there. I mean, Obama's making sure that you guys get hammered real good. But we are picking up the variations. We are aware of the short contrail chemtrail scenario. We, as part of our documentation of flights over the country, started including recently data on humidity that we could then match to altitude to work out exactly whether, you know, the humidity at that altitude the aircraft came through, and mostly they're between 36 and 39,000 feet, was sufficient to produce a contrail, or insufficient, it should have been nothing. So on these days when we see, and we've picked them up too, these very long contrails / chemtrails, but they dissipate much quicker. They don't, you know, stay in the sky like some of the big long white ones do and spread out into cloud mass. These ones, you know, they're gone within 10, 15 minutes, or a very, very faint trail is left. We believe these are different types of trails in terms of the compounds that are in them. We don't know specifically what they are at this point, but obviously you get these big white smoky ones that spread out into huge clouds, and you get these ones that just dissipate very quickly. They are 2 different materials. What they are, we don't know. Hopefully we'll be able to, you know, work that out as we go on. But there's big chunks of information missing that we would really like to have, that would support what we're doing and support the cause in getting that knowledge out there. Anyone who's watching planes on a regular basis should have a mindset that is investigative. You know, why is this one different to that one? You know, why am I seeing planes intersecting, you know, like this? These are really, really good questions. I think where these intersections are, I think Scott Stevens spoke about this a little while back, or he called them discontinuations, X's. These are areas that are consistently set up to have HARP fired at them. So it's almost like a sighting mechanism for the HARP. That could be one reason why in the background that you see these intersections happening all the time. But yeah, we need more information. There's holes in the info that's out there, and we'd like to fill those. So
yeah,
any information like this is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and I do want to mention this now that we're talking about this. The regular callers and people who listen in will have heard me say this before, but a lot of new listeners are listening in from time to time. I lived in Jamestown, New York when I first started seeing the trails on a daily basis, and after about a year and a half of spraying, there was suddenly a 4-day break, and they used to come on a schedule, 3 to 6 o'clock every evening, and then in the night. Throughout the night, they were always on a schedule, so I always knew when they were coming. They flew very tight schedules. After a year and a half or so of the spraying, suddenly there was a 4-day break, and when they came back on the 5th day, all the trails were short. So they went from absolutely whiting out the sky every single day, had a 4-day break, and then all of a sudden all the trails were non-persistent, but the smell, the taste, and the physical health symptoms were all identical. So apparently they went through some kind of equipment change, upgraded their jet spraying equipment, their dispersal equipment, and are able to make them non-persistent, which I think keeps it kind of more out of the mind of the public, makes it look less threatening. And here's the real kicker. I had to move out of Jamestown, New York in 2008 because I became so ill from the trails, and I moved to the Bangor area in Maine, which spraying was going on much less. After a couple years here of spraying and whiteouts, not as intense as Jamestown, but not terribly far away from the intensity, the almost identical thing happened. Overnight, they went from daily spraying to where they would white out the sky, and then one day, all of a sudden, all the trails were short. Now, 3 to 4 days a month, they come back and they have persistent trails. But it wasn't like it was before, where every single day they were whiting out the sky. In fact, the Bangor Globe did an article in 2010 about that was the dimmest summer in history because the sun was being blocked and we were getting the least amount of sunlight. So the same thing happened in Bangor. After I observed chemtrails here for a couple of years, they all went overnight from long persistent trails that filled the sky to non-persistent trails that were short, but the smell, the taste, and the physical symptoms were identical whether they were long or whether they were short. Now when I say identical, I want to be specific and also explain that when I say identical, I've identified at least 7 different types of trails. There's ones that taste like metal, there's ones that taste like motor oil, there's ones that taste like mushrooms and algae, there's one that tastes like acetone, so there are distinct different types. So it's a little more complicated than just saying, are they spraying, aren't they spraying? You also have to ask, what are they spraying today or at this particular time? What I noticed, because I can smell and taste them, is that they would spray certain types during the day, and other types at night. And these schedules are very consistent, and they last about 3 months, and then they'll shift the schedule somewhat, and then go another three or 4 months, and then shift the schedule again. But there are usually these consistent patterns where nighttime spraying is heavier. But the main thing I wanted to say, don't mean to go on and on about this, but to the new listeners, I really believe they are making an attempt to hide these trails or make them less apparent to the public by using newer upgraded equipment that makes them short. So, Paul, we have I'm going to do a couple more questions. I don't want to hold you up too much longer. We've been going on a while. We had a lot of people interested in hearing what you had to say, and I'm really grateful to have you on here. We have a question from the chat room. Are they, meaning your groups, Paul, getting any mainstream media to attend your events?
We try as much as possible to get mainstream media interested in what we're doing. We certainly put calls out on the day to local media outlets, television stations, and tell them what we're doing. At the moment, they've chosen not to attend, but look, as we get some momentum and this grows and the numbers grow with it, it will get to a point where there'll be a tipping point there, and mainstream media will come and cover us. Will that be in a positive fashion? I very much doubt it. We've had a few mainstream media attacks. In fact, there was an article written in a newspaper last year saying that chemtrail pilots fear attacks from the public. And basically it was designed to marginalise the growing movement as a bunch of Fruit Loops who were wanting to bring down chemtrail aircraft, and by what measure we've still got no idea, because none of us carry around any equipment to do that, of course. But so the mainstream media is complicit in terms of covering this up. I think some of the authors of these articles are very deliberately placed and quite ignorant in terms of actually what's happening overall, but they're quite well paid to produce pieces that marginalise us and put us down. We just ignore those and keep going, of course. But I expect in the future we'll see positive exposure coming out, and certainly I'm ready for one to take advantage of any media activity that pops out that's going to be positive for us. We have been offered a set-up interview with a few naysayers who are looking to discredit what we're doing at the moment, so we're ignoring those sorts of things, but it'll happen in time, definitely.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to add to what you said, too, is on one of our past meetings we had Dane on. We've had Dane on several times, and someone got on during the question and answer session and said that I just want to blow them out of the sky. And Dane's response was to say, well, that's not what we want to do. We're peaceful. We have bad feelings about this. And of course we all, we have a lot of bad feelings about this. We suffer through this, and we all feel this way. And when he said we all feel this way, he was referring to the fact that we all feel, upset about the fact that we're being sprayed, not that we want to blow them out of the sky, because we don't. That's not the goal. We are not being violent about this, nor do we have any intention to be whatsoever. This is about educating the public. And one of the famous one of the famous disinformation groups, there's a real famous website, and I'm not even going to say its name because I don't want to give them any more exposure, but they're a bunch of what I believe paid disinformants. They're people without consciences whatsoever. They actually quoted Dane, and I have the actual clip. I captured the clip from their website where they said that Dane said, after the person said, we want to blow them out of the sky, and we believe the person who said that was a plant. That's someone that they put on put on here to say that. They said on their website that Dane said, we all feel that way. And that was absolutely a lie. That's not what Dane said. Dane said we all feel that way. We feel angry about them, but we are not being violent about it. So this is what these disinformationists do. This is what's going on in some of the larger media. But especially these people without consciences who run these websites who lie about what people say. They've lied about me, too. And so I just want people who are listening to be aware that if you hear derogatory things about people who are trying to make the public aware about geoengineering and chemtrails, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that these are some of the best people I've ever met. They are not violent people. They are wonderful, family-oriented people who they don't want poison on their children and on their families and on their friends. They simply want this to stop. They don't want people to suffer. This is about helping humanity. It's not about hurting anyone. So I've just seen that firsthand. I've seen them lie about my friends. I've seen them lie about me. And if you hear derogatory things, anybody hears derogatory things about people who are trying to raise awareness about them, chances are it's a lie, and they're just trying to make everybody look bad. Just like you said, Paul, they go after us because the military has a budget for spreading disinformation, and we know this. They have people sitting in rooms that create Facebook accounts and blogs and websites, and they just try to spread disinformation and cause confusion and division. We don't want that. We want people to come together and live in safety, to live in peace, and to have health. Wouldn't you say that's true, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. I'd support that 100%, Russ. I mean, look, it's a good indicator that you're on track and you're doing something right when you're starting to get a few shill attacks.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Paul, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
No, no. So, I mean, we expect these things, and it's water off a duck's back these days. One thing I would encourage everyone not to do is go to these troll sites and try and debate with them or feed them. Don't stop feeding the trolls. They love it. It distracts you from what you're supposed to be doing, number one. Makes you an ineffective tool in raising awareness. And number two, it just drives you up the wall because they just go round and round in a circle. It's a pat line the whole time. And they will then take that and use anything you say there to try and discredit you in the marketplace, as it were. So, just avoid them, just ignore them. It's just part and parcel of life. But the more important thing, Russ, that you just raised there is that, we are non-violent. We do not wish to see anyone hurt or harmed. And these things about shooting planes down, things like that, they're designed to just make us look stupid. I mean, who seriously would want to shoot down a passenger plane? I mean, that's just ridiculous. The fact that we're even talking about it is just quite bizarre anyway.
Yeah.
But certainly a non-violent approach, open, friendly, and we are ordinary people, ordinary citizens, concerned about our loved ones, and we just want some answers.
Exactly. We want people to live in health, safety, peace. We want our agriculture to be healthy. We want a peaceful, good world. These are good people, and if anybody tries to make anybody look bad, it's a shill. And I agree with everything that you said, Paul. Don't waste your time with these people because you'd be much better spending your time going out to the public, handing out flyers, making friends, sharing it in a very professional way, what you've learned about what's going on with our soils, the rising aluminum levels, the barium levels. Even mainstream media has been talking about the rising mercury levels. That's where we could be spending our time, and just ignore these disinformants and put your time into to things that will be much more fruitful. A couple more quick questions, Paul, and then we've got another caller, 2 more chat room questions, and I think we'll wrap it up. We've been going on for almost an hour and a half here. People love talking to you, obviously, and they love this information. So let me bring our caller on for the question here. Just lost my caller. I apologize. I don't know what happened with the system here, caller, but if you'll go ahead and enter yourself back in the queue by hitting *6, I'll be happy to take your question. Here's a question from the chat room. Paul, have any former current Australian military whistleblowers
No. We're looking for whistleblowers left, right and centre, but we haven't had any credible whistleblowers emerge at this point. However, if there's any listening out there and they want to engage and start a dialogue, I can assure you that I would afford you every confidentiality and privacy in doing so. So we encourage anyone in the military, anyone in the commercial aviation sectors, from pilots to mechanics who has insight into what's going on, to feel that you can come forward, and that we'll treat what you say with the utmost respect and concern in terms of your own personal privacy and secrecy.
Paul, is there any way you want them to contact you if you want, or how do you want to work that? Or they could just contact me, or what works best for you?
Yeah, look, they can come through any channel to get to us, Russ. We've got a dedicated email for the group now, austgeo@mail.com. And, we're receiving emails from various members of the public around the world daily there at this point, so feel free to promote that email address and use it as a point of contact for us.
Okay, good. AUSTGEO, like GEO?
Yep.
Okay, AUSTGEO@mail.com, right?
That's it.
Okay, if you want to contact Paul, that's the official group. We got our caller back. Let's see if we can get this caller this time. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, I'm calling from Alaska. I was just wondering what type of acknowledgement or treatment are your Morgellons sufferers getting there?
That's a great question, and at the moment it's pretty much universal with what's going on around the world. Medical fraternity and professions Certainly the more mainstream ones are in denial about it. We do have a lot of sufferers, Morgellons sufferers in Australia. We've got a dedicated group set up for them to have a community within. These are people who are local to me. They live not very far, and a few obviously farther away. It's a big concern, but it's not being recognised by your mainstream doctors. However, we are seeing naturopaths and holistic type medical professionals taking this up and approaching it. There's no cure that we're aware of at this point for Morgellons. Certainly there is, ways to treat the skin lesions and draw some of these things out of your body, but it's very difficult to, get any knowledge or any traction in regards to getting information about chemtrails out, let alone the fact that biologicals and nanoparticles have been poured on top of us, and we're now seeing people get very, very sick from, chemical poisoning and these outbreaks of Morgellons. So it's hard to raise awareness right now. I think once we get geoengineering and stratospheric aerosol spraying into the main arena, and that we get traction with that as a topic, that the follow-on from that will be that Morgellons will receive much more attention than it's currently getting right now.
Anything else, caller? You still there, caller?
Oh, yeah. Have you guys been able to do any high-altitude air testing?
No, we haven't. We've got a couple of plans in place to be able to go and do that. Mm-hmm. They are background projects at this point, but we would certainly like to go and do that, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Okay,
all right,
thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. Paul, we have one last question from the chat room. Have they been able to figure out if the actual chemicals being sprayed in their skies are being manufactured in Australia?
That's another good question, and we're looking for any clues or trails that lead us to information like that. We don't believe that they're manufactured in Australia. We believe they're manufactured in China, and they're then imported or exported around the world to various places. Certainly our own chemical manufacturing base in Australia doesn't appear to be involved, but having said that, they may well be. But certainly China, for my mind, is where the bulk of the chemical is coming from.
Okay. Yeah, this has been great information. I'm so glad we got together and did this, Paul. We need to encourage people. People need to have, we need to be having these protests, these friendly, informative, welcoming protests all over the world. We need to not be afraid to do it. I know of some people who have rented out movie theaters and shown what in the world are they spraying and had pretty good turnouts, It's a start. Some people are putting geoengineering signs in their front yard and steering them to the website endgeoengineering.com, which is designed to introduce people. It's a very easy to navigate, simple website, and then it has links to many other sites so where they can get deeper information. But it's a great place to go to introduce them. And I'd also hopefully like in the future to have more of our international friends who are involved in this issue on our call and our stream, and just let's to work together, share information, teach each other, encourage each other. Paul, I'll give you the floor at the end. Are there any final words you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, no, I'd just like to say thank you, Russ, for having us on the show. It's been great. It's certainly good to make these inroads with the global leaders in raising chemtrail awareness, geoengineering awareness. And, just as a note of encouragement to those who are listening, we are getting organised in the background. This movement is in a groundswell phase. People are getting motivated. But we need you, each and every one of you, to do something, anything, once a day, once a week, whatever it is, whether it's handing out some information, whether it's talking to someone, whether it's putting a sticker on a post, or whether it's organising your local community to get to a protest stage. If you're doing something, don't think that that's not invaluable and ineffective, because it's everything to what we're doing. It's everything to all of us. If we all get motivated, they can't deny us all. They have to get to a point at some place in time where, yep, okay, the cat's out of the bag, and we're going to come clean. Of course, they'll probably lie in that process doing that, but it will be the traction that we need moving forward to get a ban, a moratorium put in place, where we can demand public action that these programs are stopped. They were started without our permission. They've been carried out without our permission, continued on to this day without our permission. There's no government oversight. There's no environmental oversight. We're being sprayed, and we demand that a ban and a moratorium be put in place on these programs until we can better assess what geoengineering is doing to the planet, and we can make some better calls in terms of how we'd like our environment managed, rather than it just being dictated to us.
Absolutely.
So just get involved at any level you possibly can. Just do something, and do it today.
Websites and groups you'd like to share real quick?
Yeah, sure. If you want to come and join us at Australian and New Zealand Geoengineering Protest, we'd love to have you join that Facebook group. We've got an event section set up there now, and we'd like to help plug you into something local. We've got a full list of groups that we'd like to basically utilise. So where and when I can, I'm plugging people into communities that are near or close to them, that they can start engaging and building something out of. We'd like to see, obviously, protests right through America, Europe, and the UK during April, and we've already got some good inroads for that to happen. So if you want to come and join with us on April the 20th, then come to our main Facebook site and join us on there, and we'll see what we can do about getting you plugged in.
Excellent. And this is Russ from GlobalSkywatch.com. Please join us on Monday nights for our conference at globalskywatch.com/live, LIVE, all small letters. If you need help setting up a website, a blog, a forum, a Facebook group, or you need help with any of the activism, getting things printed, whatever you need advice or help with, contact me, and I will put you in touch with the people who can help you. My email address is admin, ADMIN, at globalskywatch.com. Paul, it's been an honor speaking with you. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I'm sure we will chat again soon. And you take care of yourself, and you give everybody down under the best, and big thanks from the United States, please.
Will do, Russ. Thanks for having us on the show, mate. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, and good night.